George Washington. Biography. George Washington Facts. He was one of the most popular U.S. presidents and laid down the foundations of the role of a president in the future. He was also famous for being the biggest president of the United States, as he was 6 feet, 2 inches tall and weighed 200 pounds. Childhood and growing up. George Washington was born on the 22nd of February 1732 and grew up in colonial Virginia. George started working as a surveyor of lands, but later he became a leader with the Virginia Armed Force and became involved in the war with the French and Indians. He became a big landowner himself and was elected to the Virginian legislature. George was against the ill treatment of people by their British rulers and fought with them for their rights. When the British disagreed, George Washington and his people decided to go to war. The American Revolution and Washingtoneers later, each colony under the British decided to fight together, and George Washington represented the colony of Virginia as a delegate. In May 1775, Washington was declared as the general of the Continental Army. It was a tough time, as George Washington had to train an army of colonial farmers to fight against trained British soldiers. He lost many battles during the American Revolution that went on for 6 years. On the 25th of December 1776, George Washington, with his Continental Army, crossed the Delaware River into New Jersey for a surprise attack on the British Army. This was a turning point in America's favor. The Battle of Yorktown was the last battle of the American Revolution. Here the British Army was surrounded and greatly outnumbered. Thus the British decided to surrender and also considered a peace treaty. Thus George Washington succeeded in leading his army to victory over the British on October 17, 1781. George Washington is president. It was in 1789 that George Washington was elected as the first president of the United States. He was the one who helped build the words of the Constitution. He also formed the first presidential cabinet with the Secretary of State and Secretary of Treasury. In his first year, the capital of the United States was in New York City and then moved to Philadelphia. The capital of Washington was named after him, but he never served there. After 8 years of his presidential rule, George Washington himself stepped down, as he believed that a president should not rule for a very long time. A few years after leaving the office, Washington caught a bad cold and throat infection and died on the 14th of December 1799. In honor of George Washington, the Columbian College in the District of Columbia changed its name to George Washington University. George Washington quotes, 1. If the freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led, like sheep to the slaughter. 2. Discipline is the soul of an army. 3. It is far better to be alone than in bad company. 4. True friendship is a plant of slow growth. 5. It is better to offer no excuse than a bad one.